Ivan Demidov has a 4-point game. Arber Xhekaj has a lot of news that's been surrounding him as of late. And are the Habs in a position for a lottery pick given how early on in the season they've started struggling? Hi there, I'm Conor Tomalty and welcome back to another episode of Game On Montreal. We have a lot of headlines and things to talk about today, but first things first, I'm going to remind you to like, comment, subscribe to our channel, and add the Game Over Network to your homepage for all the hockey and Montreal content, especially that you can handle. We have to talk about things real quick, but absolutely first thing we have to do is get into, once again, the sponsor of today's video, and that is, once again, Hyperdrive Hockey. Hyperdrive Hockey is a show hosted by the Game Over Network by Maxime Van Hoot and Daphne Malberf. These are two incredible hockey minds who have been for a longer time working in the French media industry here in Quebec, but are transitioning into English media here at the Game Over Network and have been doing incredible content thus far. Their show Hyperdrive Hockey explores everything in the world of hockey, not just exclusively the NHL, but also the PWHL and European hockey at large. Whatever there is to talk about in this great frozen sport, they have you covered. You can find them on iHeartRadio, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find them on the Game Over Network, which is very important. So make sure that you tune in, subscribe, and give them a listen because they have a lot to share. So I guess the big news that we can talk about is Ivan Demidov. Ivan Demidov, like we said in our last video where we talked about him, we're going to speak about him a bit more when there's an off day or a couple days in between games to look into the top prospect in the Habs system. And Demidov had a really good game yesterday against Kunlun Red Star, in the KHL. Of course, Sky is one of the powerhouse teams, but he exemplified his offensive talents once again with 4 points. They were all assists, but still nobody's knocking on an assist. I swear, I guarantee you that. Demidov looked really impressive with the puck, but he always has. But it's not just the fact that he had 4 points yesterday. It's also looking at his stat that we saw today, or I found today on Habs Reddit, which is that among KHL players who have played a minimum of 10 games, I believe he's played 19 if I'm not mistaken, he has the most points per 60 minutes at 4.61. So he's been impressive so far to start the season. I know that we talked last time about ice time, and there was a lot of scrutiny or a lot of pining from fans to maybe evaluate that a bit more and see if there's something to be done. Jeff Gorton was, we mentioned his comments last time we talked about that, but so far Demidov is looking like he can still produce well at the KHL level, and that's obviously a good sign given that there is going to be a lot of attention on him when he does come to North America, especially with him rejecting some of the contract offers that have been presented to him by the KHL for an extension. It looks like he might make his way to the NHL for 2025-26 as we all anticipated, but it's a good sign to see that he's still producing pretty well. But talking about somebody who's already here overseas, Arber Xhekaj has had a lot of attention on him in the past couple of days. I think it started mainly with his comments following, actually, you know what? It started mainly with the George Laraque comments when he joined BPM Sports, saying that he can expect, or he has expectation that the front office will trade Arber Xhekaj at some point to try and bring somebody else in on the roster, most likely offensively. And I think that's no surprise when it comes to talking about how many defensemen that they have for the Canadians. The main thing with Matheson being injured, he is still playing, but he is one of the two veterans, along with David Savalt, on that back line who is, veteran presence is necessary, and the Habs have had some defensive woes, to say the least, not just as of late, but in seasons past, and you need more than just a bunch of young guys who are still, on their way to getting their feet under them and getting more experience, especially with somebody like Caden Gooley injured and Justin Barron now day to day. They can't really risk losing more guys and more top talent. So a guy like Arber Xhekaj, where if he's getting interest, maybe the Canadians take a couple phone calls for sure. There's also the fact that Arber Xhekaj made a statement when he was asked following the Jacob Trouba hit, speaking of which, he was asked by reporters about how he felt, and he said he'd remember it, and then that we'd see what would happen next game. So the Canadians are going to be taking on the Rangers until, I believe, November 30th, if I'm not mistaken. And Xhekaj, as we know, is to a degree a good enforcer. He's not a guy who has said in the past he's exclusively for fighting, but you could tell that if it wasn't Matheson who stepped in right after the hit from Trouba on Barron, maybe Xhekaj was the guy, if he was playing that game, who's going after Trouba. Last thing we should talk about is an interesting article I saw today on Montreal Hockey Now by Marco D'Amico, who does really good work. Marco was pointing out, I know it's very early on in the season, he said so as well, but maybe it's time to start talking about lottery picks for the Habs when it comes to 2025. It is, as we've pointed out, very early on in the season, but the struggles are incredibly apparent for the Canadiens. And as much as we've seen them sort of slowly decline into the bottom rankings of the standings, it's an early on aspect. And with the injuries and the lack of production and the defensive woes that we've been seeing, and now the goaltending, as we pointed out yesterday, Montembeault and Primo, hasn't been super stellar as of late. And for that reason, it's all just a problem that's kind of becoming together. It's a formula for not succeeding this year, but in a year that you really were hoping for more results from the Canadiens. Again, super, super early on, but it's an interesting article that I'll link down to below in the description, and maybe you guys see for yourselves, because you can let us know what you think in the comment section. Is it too early to look at lottery picks? I know there's names like James Hagens from, I think it's Boston University, that's being talked about. There's Roger McQueen as well, who's, I think, like this big center that I've been looking at a little bit on his stat stuff and Elite Prospects page as of late. But let us know what you think in the comment section. Is it too early for the Habs to be looking at lottery picks and tanking? Is it what are the likelihoods of Arber Xhekaj being moved? And of course, if you just love Ivan Demidov, let us know that you love Ivan Demidov, because that's going to do it for today's video. So once again, just going to remind you guys, comment, subscribe to the channel, add the Game Over Network to your homepage for all the hockey and Montreal content you could handle. Once again, I've been Conor Tomalty saying thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.